Here, the candidates representing District 3 in Central Denver, we have Caron Blanke, Scott Esserman, and DJ Torres. I do want to go over the rules one more time for this group of candidates. So each candidate will be given a minute to respond to the question. We have the clock right there. It's small, but you can see it. Each candidate will be given one rebuttal limited to 30 seconds. And then we'll end each debate with each candidate providing a 30-second closing statement. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Melanie.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. What is the biggest issue facing DPS, and how would you address it? Caron, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Good evening. I think that academic achievement is one of the biggest issues we have facing the district, particularly the equity gap that exists between white students and students of color. I think mental health and safety go hand in hand in ensuring academic achievement. I think that we need to restore a healthy governance system to this board. I think that we need to see a board who strives for excellence and make sure that they are holding their one employee accountable to results. And I think that the board has lost community trust. I think that community voice has been silenced, and I want to see real engagement, real listening, and listening leads to decision making. We shouldn't be making decisions without talking to the people who are in our schools and the spaces and in the communities where our kids spend their days. I also think we need data to drive our decision making as well, and I think that there's a very linear process to that. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I think the number one concern that is impacting DPS right now is regaining and maintaining trust, both in terms of the role of the board, but also just being out in community, speaking with folks. And for me, I think that maintenance of trust really comes back to having a board that feels grounded, feels settled, feels responsible, feels mature. That's number one priority for me that I think we can solve as potential members of the board. I think next is helping folks feel re-engaged by their board processes. I've been out in the community talking with folks all over District 3, and the number one concern that people raise to me is how do we continue to be in relationship with the board? How do we continue to be in relationship with the superintendent? And how do we continue to allow this feedback loop process to continue to develop? For me, that's issue number one that we will address, that I will address when I enter the board come the end of the year. For me, it really is about regaining and maintaining that trust, both with community and for us holding ourselves responsible as board members.
Given that the school district's job is to educate children, our number one issue is how we educate children. You've heard a lot of repeated messages tonight attacking the board, attacking the district, attacking the superintendent. And the reality is we were just rated green for the second time in our history. Is that good enough? Not even close. But we know that when we pull up to a stoplight, green means go. It means continue on the same progress, continue working towards what we need to get for all of our students. You're gonna hear a lot tonight, you already heard a lot tonight, about attacks. But you haven't heard what people are actually going to do. I've been in community. Community drafted me to run the first time. I'm proud of my interactions with community. I'm proud of the amount that I show up in community as a board member. I haven't seen that from a lot of the other candidates, and I hope to in the future.
Thank you all. So we've asked this question a couple of times tonight. Enrollment in DPS is declining. DPS has a policy that calls for closing schools with low test scores. Would you vote to close a school with low enrollment or low test scores? Why or why not? And Scott, we'll start with you.
Great. There's no more difficult decision that we face as a board, that anybody would face as a board, than having to close a school for any reason. I don't want to vote to close any school, and I've had to. I will not vote to close a school based on their achievement results. Period, full stop. I have not, I will not. When it comes to declining enrollment, that we know is primarily a result of declining birth rates, not just in Denver and not just in Colorado, but nationwide, we have to look at how we make sure our resources are distributed equitably. And when we are subsidizing smaller schools with lower enrollments, we're doing a disservice to all of our students. And so in those moments, we have built a policy that takes into account community voice. And I'm proud of that. And we're going to continue working in that direction. And I look forward to your support in doing so.
No, I don't believe that I will be in favor of closing schools based on test scores and low enrollment. I think these are ultimately equity issues that we need to address as a district. I think for me, the test scores, as many of our colleagues have talked about tonight, test scores represent, I think, often an undereducated group of folks who, not because of their own fault, but because of the district, I think folks have, I think folks have been not equitably educated, and so then to punish them and go back to their communities and say, because we as a district have caused a disservice, we are now using that to grant the ability to close a school. No, I don't agree with that. I also think low enrollment cannot be a reason, both because of birth rates and because of gentrification. We can't punish communities and families in continuing to harm those communities, especially those who are being forced out of their own rooted neighborhoods. I don't believe in that at all. And I also want to say, I've spoken at length with folks from Palmer Elementary School. They're hurt. They were really challenged in this process and would love to support other schools not have to go through that same process.
Nobody wants to close any school. On the board, I would take an honest and thoughtful approach to these decisions. We can expect an 8% decline in enrollment by 2029. So we need to be proactive in the way that we're thinking about this. And there are many factors that should go into considerations about whether to keep a school open or close it that impacts communities deeply. We want to use data-driven frameworks, clear, transparent metrics that we will use consistently across the board and across the district to make difficult decisions when necessary. We're fiduciaries. Board members have a financial responsibility to steward the money that's coming into the district, and we have to make sure our schools are being utilized to the best capacity they can be, and that we are serving our students. Wasn't out of time. And I think most importantly, we have to be in communities as early as possible to engage in real conversations so that there are no surprises when anything happens when we do face these challenges.
Thank you all. Thank you. DPS has taken steps to protect students from immigration enforcement in and around schools, even suing the Trump administration. How do you think the district should approach this issue? Caron, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I think that the school district has done an excellent job in protecting students from ICE in schools. I would absolutely uphold this policy. I would do everything I can to fight to protect our students. I know from speaking to school leaders and teachers right now that we have students across the district that are not showing up to school. And when the school calls to find out where they are, or they go to their homes, they can't find them. This cannot happen, and I will fight at every level to make sure that the school district continues to make sure that schools remain safe institutions where kids can know that they're going to be protected when they show up.
Yeah, I also will agree that the district has done a really wonderful job continuing to support our students from all over the world, and I want to just really honor that that is a really difficult process, and families are hurting, students are hurting, and I want to be an ongoing advocate that supports our students from other countries. I do want to say at my son's school, his principal doesn't have a ton of relationships that she could just call parents on the phone. And when immigration was threatening the students at our elementary school, she called me and she called my husband. And she said, hey, we would love it if you could just come and be another presence at the school to be sure that we're safeguarding folks from entering the building without any permission. I really was so thankful for that opportunity and got to see firsthand the fear that crossed folks' eyes as they were coming to and from the school to pick up their children that day. That was a powerful experience and one that I would not wish upon any family in DPS. I'd also say, like what we did at our school, we continue to perpetuate Know Your Rights trainings, red card trainings, legal supports, things like that to continue to support our students from other countries.
I'm not going to tell you what I would do. I'm going to tell you what I have done. And what you've heard from every candidate thus far is that what we're doing as a district is on point, and it's what we should be doing. And I'm proud to have led that effort. I'm proud to have been in Washington, D.C. for the last 2 years lobbying with our congressional delegation to ensure the rights of our immigrant families and our immigrant students and our new-to-country students, that I advocated for additional resources from our State House and from our State Senate that were ultimately provided. Thank you, Senator Gonzalez, among others. I'm proud of this work. I'm proud of what we've done. I'm proud of the lawsuit that we filed against the Trump administration and additional lawsuits we will file. Just this morning, I was at one of our comprehensive high schools, speaking with one of our principals, who shared with us that ICE is posted up outside the school. They have not come for our students, but they're taking pictures of license plates. They're going to the parking lots where students are getting lunch and acting on intimidation. And I won't stand for it. I haven't, and I'll continue not to.
Thank you all. So several questions submitted by the public ask specifically about the achievement of Black and Latino students. What policies would you support, or what direction would you give the superintendent regarding the education of Black and Latino students in particular? Scott, we'll start with you.
Okay. So again, this is something that's incredibly important to me. It's one of the reasons that I was elected. It's one of the things that I ran on. It's one of the things that I continue to focus on. And in the midst of our results, it's what we need to continue to focus on. So when we talk about policies, we're talking about the kind of guardrails that allow the superintendent to take the actions in the school with his expert staff, with our chief academic officer, that are boosting those results. That we have to look at the growth results that we got this year as a leading indicator of what we're going to see in terms of achievement moving forward in the future. I've already advocated for repeatedly, and now we'll put into policy changes so that we are evaluating our schools beyond test scores. You've heard it from almost every candidate tonight. Test scores are an inadequate measure that don't paint a full picture of our students. And yet we continue to lean into that. And the first policy that I'll pass is in my second term will be to ensure that we're looking at additional data.
When I worked in the central office of Denver Public Schools, I worked in culturally responsive education, which is the department, or was the department, that focused on equity and the curriculum, equity and education, educating our teachers, and also equity and educating our senior leadership team. When I was a part of that work, I helped write the No Justice, No Peace board resolution that some of the board members, both past and present, passed during their tenure. I worked with the students from MLK Early College to write that board resolution. I also helped enact the Black Excellence Report, Black Excellence Resolution plans that schools then enacted in every single one of their schools. My team was tasked with making sure that schools were turning that into practice. I was also an early reader of the La Raza report, written by some of our folks here in the audience today, which led to a body of work that is still happening in Denver Public Schools. So I think that the work has happened, and it can only grow and improve. I think continuing to center the importance of the data, that all of us continue to talk about how Black and brown students continue to achieve disproportionately to their white colleagues and peers, I think that's a problem, and I want to continue to work on this.
I appreciate the question. I think that when over half of our students are students of color, we need to have answers. I think we have to demand radical transparency from our superintendent on performance data. Currently, I think that there is a lot of information that is hidden from the public. I personally use a third-party source to access disaggregated data. This can't continue. The school board has to be responsible for the academic achievement of all students. So I think we need real accountability to get access to disaggregated data, to understand that currently we have a very serious problem. The recent CMAS scores tell us actually that charter and innovation schools are serving our kids of color the best. And I'm wondering, why are we not going out and breaking down the silos of schools and replicating best practices that are already happening where Latino and Black students are succeeding and doing well? I also think we need to understand root causes of why we are where we are. Thank you.
Scott, you had a rebuttal?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not misinforming the public. That there is not data that our charter schools and innovation schools are doing better than our district-run schools are. That's simply false, and the data doesn't bear it out. Disaggregated data doesn't bear it out. Charters, innovation schools, and district schools all have schools that are doing well and all have schools that are not doing well. And we see it across the district, And to make that claim is just disingenuous and problematic.
Actually, a recent op-ed published in the Denver Post by our colleagues Rob Stein and former Mayor Federico Pena provides very specific data on exactly how students of color are being served better by their charters, and I would encourage everybody to find that article and read it.
Thank you. The next question will start with you, Caron. DPS has a mix of district-run and charter schools, and several audience members and students submitted questions on this topic. What is your opinion of charter schools?
I find it really interesting that the question keeps coming up when charter schools, innovation schools are public schools in Denver. They're part of a family of portfolio of schools. And I believe that they are necessary to ensure that we're providing equitable, high quality educational experiences for all of our students. I think that when we hint or even directly criticize the idea that charters exist, we're criticizing parents and their right to choose what's best for their student, and recognizing that we should be differentiating among students' needs. And we're very fortunate in the city that we have an opportunity to provide different options for our families. I also think that when we attack charters, we're attacking the educators who choose to teach in those schools. And there are reasons. In speaking to teachers at charter schools, I find it amazing how there are unique philosophies and ideologies, and that's why teachers choose to be there.
My opinion on charter schools is that, as everyone has mentioned, they are a part of the family of schools. However, I think it's the responsibility of the board to make sure that we're interrogating all of the options that our families have at an equitable level. And I quite frankly think that when charter schools focus on, hiring young professionals who may or may not have college degrees, who then don't have the opportunity to form collective action, I do wonder about the ability for those educators to be the most informed educators they can be when making the selection to enter into a charter school. I also think about the centralized accountability that happens from the central office that charter schools often have the ability to opt out of. And I think I'm a former special educator. I can't help but think about the ways that some charter schools have made the choice to opt out of serving all of our students, especially those with disabilities. So I do struggle with the idea that they're all equally providing education to our young people. While I do think that, yes, they are a part of the network of schools, I do think that we can do more to hold them accountable from the central office.
We've heard a lot of calls tonight for transparency and trust, and we have candidates who are supported by charter money. And so this question is about adult issues and not about kid issues, because kids don't care whether they go to a charter, whether they go to an innovation school, or whether they go to a district-run school. And most parents that you ask may not know whether or not their child is going to a charter school or a district-run school or an innovation school. This question is divisive. This question is problematic. This question has become part of the narrative of what we talk about in Denver public schools, and it doesn't serve students. For 20 years as an educator, for 4 years on this board, I've served students, I've committed my life to serving students, and I'm going to continue to do so. And I'm going to do so as a board member, and I'm going to do so as a community member, as I did long before I was on the board, and I'm going to continue to do so.
Thank you all. So Lily Becker is a junior at George Washington High School and a Faith Bridge Fellow, she submitted a question about how the board would hold the superintendent accountable. Many audience members did as well. Is DPS Superintendent Alex Marrero doing a good job? Why or why not? Scott?
So the short answer is yes, but I'm not going to stop there, and that shouldn't surprise anyone. He is not, however, doing a perfect job. And to have a simple dichotomy of is he doing a good job or not a good job doesn't allow for the nuance that any of us would have, our employers have for us. We want to evaluate what he's doing well, and we want to encourage him on what he needs to grow on and learn on, and that's exactly what we've done as a board. You can look up the evaluations that we've done. Part of that evaluation is in fact a self-evaluation, but that's not the entire evaluation. You can check that out yourself. It's all available. Is he doing a good job? Has he created community hubs? Has he been the one that stood up to the Trump administration and made sure that we filed lawsuits? Is he the one that brought cops back into schools when many of us on the board didn't want them back in schools because people demanded safety? He's done good work, and he's done good work on academic achievement, and he deserves the opportunity to continue that work.
Can I just take a rebuttal? No, I responded.
Scott had the rebuttal, and then Caron answered. So this can be your 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. I'm curious if you feel that way, why there was secrecy and a violation of Colorado open meeting laws to extend the superintendent's contract prematurely and without a performance evaluation that the public and stakeholders were part of participating in, just the same way that teachers and school leaders are evaluated by community members.
So it's interesting that once again you have your facts wrong. There was no open meeting law violation around that. The only open meeting law violation that occurred was around the returning of cops to East High School. So I'm not sure how else to answer that other than to simply say there was nothing in advance. There was a story created by an organization that supports you with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, who tried to make this an issue when it wasn't.
So we want to move on. DJ, I'll ask the question again. Is DPS Superintendent Alex Marrero doing a good job? Why or why not?
Yeah, I think he's doing a fine job. That's what I'll say. I think part of the question that I have as a hopefully incoming board member is wanting to continue to understand what data has been made public to the, both internal staff, but also to the general public, and what data is yet to be uncovered, both by asking good and informed and hopefully more developed questions as the board continues to evolve what it's looking for in terms of data. I also think he's doing a fine job, but probably not worth extending a contract. And I think for me, that is where I have a problem, is taking the opportunity away from folks who may or may not be serving in the board come the end of the year to extend a contract based on little to no community feedback. I have a problem with that. And so for me, yes, he's doing a fine job. Is there more to be done? Definitely. Is there more to uncover with what's yet to be done? Absolutely. And I look forward to being a part of how we continue to uncover and evolve the narrative around data that's coming out of the superintendent and his staff.
I would have loved if the board had decided to conduct a performance evaluation the way any CEO would have had to undergo in any business in this country. So it's hard to answer that question without information from the people who have direct access to his performance. As a parent in the district, I have great concerns about the superintendent's performance. I have met with him personally. Having the opportunity to speak a couple of times to him. I've also sent numerous emails which have gone unanswered, and I have yet to see action plans that align with the actual issues that he says he cares about. So I have a lot of concern about what the board is doing to hold their one employee accountable, as that is probably one of their most important jobs. I think that I'd like to see a lot more community engagement from the superintendent. I was at a listening session recently where he came in the room for 5 minutes and then left, and there was no opportunity for community members to actually engage with him, which is a unique opportunity because we're usually restricted by 2 minutes.
Thank you all. So now we're going to move into a lightning round. So candidates, raise your hand if you agree with the following statements. Denver Public Schools is headed in the right direction. Denver High School should have armed police officers stationed inside.
Limiting public comment at Denver school board meetings was the right decision. The school board does not spend enough time discussing academic data. A school should have all gender restrooms. Thank you.
Now we're going to move into closing statements. Each candidate will have 30 seconds for a closing statement. So Caron, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Thank you again to Regis University, Chalkbeat, Channel 7 for hosting us tonight, for all of you coming out. I am really excited to have the opportunity to run in this campaign. I've gotten to meet some incredible school leaders, educators, families, and hear about what's happening in our district beyond my own personal experience. I'm a mom of 3 children, 2 DPS graduates, and 1 student who's at DPS high school. My background is in early childhood education, so I believe that the first 5 years of life are crucial. As a board member, I would push to see more and stronger early childhood centers. Sorry, I'm out.
Yeah, time's up.
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
DJ.
Thank you for taking the time to listen and engage, both in the audience and with these really thoughtful questions, both that you're offering and the offerings from our audience members. I'm running because our kids, educators, and families deserve a board that leads with transparency, integrity, and hope. I've spent my career turning community priorities into real policy, not behind closed doors, but in partnership with the people most affected. I'm ready to bring stability, honesty, and heart back to our schools. On November 4th, I ask for your vote so we can build a Denver Public Schools that truly serves every child and every family. Thank you.
In addition to over 20 years in the classroom, I've spent the last 18 years as a DPS parent with a senior who's graduating this year. That's a lot of experience. I've spent the last 4 years on the board. I've spent many more years in community. People are up here asking for your vote who haven't been present for our students and haven't been present in community. I have been, and I'm committed to continuing to do so. I'm going to refer last to a Denver Post op-ed that said the ideal candidate will be independent enough to buck the DCTA union when it's wrong and strong enough to stand up to failing charter schools and demand accountability. I am that candidate.
Again, I'd like to thank all of the candidates here tonight, Scott Esserman, DJ Torres, and Caron Blanke. And with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back.